Hi everyone, my name is Andy, and in this video you'll see how you can model a makeup brush and then render it in Blender. And after that I'm going to show you the post-production process in Photoshop. As usual, there are timestamps below this video, so feel free to switch between different parts. I put the model on Gumroad, so feel free to use it for your own personal or commercial projects. The link will be under this video. And also, if you'd like to get feedback from me, you can submit your renders to my Facebook group, and I will provide my opinion on your renders. So first of all, I'm gonna bring in the reference image into the scene, and before that I hit 1 on a numpad to switch to front view, and then I simply drag and drop the image right here. I'm gonna position somewhere in the center. I'm gonna decrease the opacity slightly. Let's get rid of default cube, like this. So I'm gonna model the main part of the brush and then the cap. Shift A to bring in the cylinder. I'm gonna decrease vertices to 16. Tab to enter the edit mode, and Z, choose wireframe. Then S to scale it, GZ to move it up. I'm gonna slightly scale it. I'm gonna select these vertices at the bottom, EZ to extrude them, and then ES. Then I'm going to create the top part, E to extrude it up, E to extrude it one more time, S to scale it, E, S to scale, and I do the same steps again. ES and E, and move it all the way up. 3 to switch to the faces. Then I'm going to select this face, X to delete it. Get back to vertices mode, and I'm going to select this loop on the top, ES to scale it. Let me see how it should be. Well, I'm going to give it a thickness a bit, probably something like that, ES to scale it, and EZ to move it down somewhere here. It doesn't matter since this part won't be visible anyway. Control 3 to add a subdivision surface modifier. Right click and shade smooth. So now I have to adjust the shape a bit, and again I switch to wireframe mode by hitting Z and moving my mouse to the left. Tab to enter the edit mode, and maybe I'm gonna add one more loop here, Control R, and I'm gonna select, I'm gonna select these vertices, and maybe I'm gonna increase them, something like that. Let me see. And here we have some sort of step between these two parts. So what I can do, I'm going to select these vertices and hit Control B to add a bevel. This, and I'm going to add 2 segments. I'm going to select these 3 loops, Alt S, and I'm going to move it like this. Maybe that's too much, and select all the vertices above and move it slightly lower, like that. So something like this, I guess. And let's select top vertices, GZ to move it up a bit, like this. I'm gonna add one more loop right here, and I'm gonna add a few bevels for the bottom. I'm gonna select this part, Control B. I'm gonna decrease segments right here to like 2 will be enough, I guess. And for that part as well, let me see, I'm gonna select this loop, Control B, like that, and for that part as well, Control B. Actually, let me see. I'm gonna create a loop cut here, Control B, and maybe just a small bevel here, decrease segments. Yeah, something like that. Probably I want to put this part a bit lower, so tap to enter the edit mode, wireframe mode, and I'm going to select these vertices. Make sure that you don't select unnecessary vertices, and then I'm going to switch back to solid view, G, Z to move it down like this, and I'm going to select this loop, get back to front view, and GZ to move it up. So yeah, something like that, I guess. All right, that looks good for me. And now let's quickly model the cap. Shift A to bring cylinder to the scene. 16 vertices will work fine. And tap to enter the edit mode, GX to move it along the X axis. And I'm gonna scale it down a bit, like this, GX, and GZ to move it up. So let's enter wireframe mode. I'm going to select this part, GZ to move it up, E again. Let's get back to solid view, 3 to switch to faces. I'm going to select this face, X, delete, get back to vertices mode by hitting 1 on the keyboard, ES to scale it, maybe something like that, ES again, and EZ to move it up like this. Maybe that's too far. Let's leave it somewhere here. ES and ES again, M and collapse. So that's how it looks like. Let's create a bevel right here. Control B, and I'm gonna add 2 segments, and same for that part. Control B, something like that. What's something strange is happening right here. I'm not sure what this loop is doing here. Let me see. I'm gonna isolate this object. Shift B. Let's just delete it. Let's try to delete those vertices. I'm gonna select these 2 and hit F. Get back to faces, X, delete face. Actually, I have to connect those. Those vertices. Alright, that looks good now. Let's hit Ctrl 3 to add a subdivision surface modifier, then right click and shade smooth. Let's bring in all objects to our scene. So yeah, that's what we have. Let me check it. Maybe I have to adjust this slightly, so I'm gonna select this. Actually, I'm gonna select this loop and GZ to move it down slightly, like this. I'm gonna select this one and hit GZ to move it up and slightly scale it. Maybe like this. Yeah, looks okay. Maybe I have to make this bevel a bit kind of bigger. So I'm gonna select this loop, Alt and left click, double G to slide it down, S to scale it like this, So yeah, something like that, I guess. So let's create the actual hair on the top of this object. So for that I hit Shift A, Mesh, and bring in Cube into the scene, GZ to move it a bit higher. Then I'm gonna get back to front orthographic view, tab to scale it. Then make sure that you in object mode I hit Ctrl 3 to bring in subject and surface modifier. I'm gonna increase render levels to 3. So we have something like this, right click and shade smooth. I'm gonna move it a bit lower, somewhere, maybe somewhere here, and tab to enter the edit mode. I'm gonna select these 2 vertices, actually 4 vertices on the top. For that I switch to wireframe mode and just select top vertices and slightly zoom out SX to scale it along the X axis. So I guess something like this probably. Let's actually scale it along the Y. So tab SY, and I'm gonna make it like this, and maybe a bit more along the X. We don't have to make it actually match it perfect with the edges of this object, so it's okay for now. And now I go into the particle properties right here, click on this plus icon, choose hair, and as you can see we have some hair. It looks not the way we want it, but we're gonna fix it shortly. So let's decrease hair length to like maybe to something like that. Let me see. Yeah, let's try like this length, for example. So let me see what we have to adjust. Strand steps, let's put 3 here. And this is really important. In children menu, choose interpolated, so we actually add more hair into the scene. This is kind of multiplier, so I don't need 100 render amount, so I just put 10. So I will get, if you put exact same numbers here, so you'll get the actual picture you see in your viewport. So let's adjust the shape of the hair. So for that I go to particle edit on this menu. Make sure that your cube is active, so I go to particle edit and then I choose comp, and I simply move all those hairs up like this. Let me choose wireframe mode, maybe it will be easier. Yeah, so I move them up from the front view like this. So yeah, don't forget to switch to side view and adjust it from side view as well, like that. Move it up. So let me see again. I switch back to front view. Let's switch to object mode and we will see what we just did. So looks not bad, by the way. That's my first attempt actually. Looks cool. So let me see how we can make it more kind of realistic. By the way, it's not possible to increase the hair length after you use the comp tool. So for that I'm gonna enter the edit mode for this item, and I'm gonna switch to wireframe mode. I'm gonna select top vertices and GZ to move it slightly up. Then go to back to object mode and then get back to edit mode, scale along the X. So I guess this shape will work. Let me see. Maybe I can adjust this part, for example, like I'm going to increase the radius and decrease strength. So I'm just move them slightly toward the left and to the right here. Just a bit like this. So yeah, I think that's pretty fine. Also, we have to get rid of the hairs on this side, so I'm gonna get back to particle edit and then decrease the radius, just move hairs away. Like this. Actually, they're not going anywhere. I mean, let me see. Let's adjust this part. Yeah, that looks better. Same here. Maybe let me try just scale it slightly like this. And along the Y, SY, just make it a bit smaller. That's too much. So yeah, almost perfect. Let's adjust along the Y a bit more, like this. Maybe we can adjust it better from top view. Gonna increase the radius and just move them like this to kind of distribute them more evenly. So let's leave it as is for now, and I'm gonna adjust the actual hairs. So if I'm gonna switch to the rendered mode, let me switch to cycles, it's okay. So I'm gonna decrease samples for viewport, and I'm gonna move light source somewhere here. I'm gonna increase power of that to 100, for example. Let's actually choose 200. Switch back to front view. So again, I choose cube and go to particle settings, and then let me see, I'm gonna increase uniform parameter in roughness. Let's actually switch back to this mode, and I'm gonna increase uniform like this, endpoint, and I'm gonna increase random. So yeah, I guess something like this. By the way, let's increase quantity of each hair, so maybe like 25, and render amount 25 as well. Something like this. Let's try 30 here and here as well. And let's adjust the shape. So I'm gonna decrease diameter to like let's try 0.5, for example, and tip like 0.3. Maybe a bit bigger. So yeah, that's what we have so far. I think that now it looks too thick, so let's get back to 0.6 and 0.3 for the tip. Yeah, I guess something like this would work. Okay, I want to bring in more kind of randomness to this, so I'm gonna increase uniform a bit more. Maybe like that, and also endpoint. I'm gonna increase endpoint as well. So yeah, let's add some materials for these objects. So for that, I'm gonna split my screen, go into shader editor right here. Let's switch to material preview mode. So now, as you can see, we don't have any textures. So let's hit new, and I'm gonna choose base color. Click on this eyedropper and then just click on my reference image somewhere in the midtones, probably somewhere here. Then I'm gonna decrease roughness, probably like this. I'm gonna set the same material for the cap. I'm gonna choose it here. Maybe I have to make it more saturated and probably darker. Let me adjust hue as well. Maybe that will be the good starting point. So I don't have to unwrap the object, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna unwrap only on the front part. So I switch to UV editor. So now I choose the cylinder, hit tab to enter the edit mode, and select the vertices I see, then hit U on the keyboard and choose project from view. So that's what we have. I'm gonna select all islands here, S to scale it, to make it bigger, like this. And that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna collapse this window. As you can see, we have a front title on the front surface, so we have to recreate it somehow. I'm gonna do that in Photoshop. I created a new file in Photoshop. The resolution is 2048 by 2048, and I just hit T on the keyboard, and I'm gonna, what we have there, let me check, hourglass. So I just type it here, make it bigger. Let's decrease the size to like 100, and I'm gonna rotate it counterclockwise like this. And of course I'm gonna adjust the font, of course. So let me see. So I guess something like this will work. I'm gonna export this texture. Actually, I have to put it onto the transparent background, so I'm gonna duplicate it by hitting Ctrl J. I'm gonna delete this one and Shift N, bring in empty layer and delete this white background. Then I have to rasterize this layer, so I just hit G on the keyboard and then confirm rasterization, hit OK, Ctrl E to merge all the layers, and then I can save this file. File, save as, and I choose PNG. So now we can import this texture into Blender. I'm gonna get back to Blender and I'm gonna split the screen, go to shader editor right here. Let me duplicate this material and let's call it, let's leave it as is actually. Shift A, and I'm gonna bring in mix shader. I'm gonna put it to this socket on the top. Then I have to import the actual texture. So Shift A, image texture, open, and I'm gonna find it somewhere on my desktop right here. And make sure that your node is active, and I hit Ctrl T to bring in texture coordinate and mapping node. By the way, you have to make sure that you have a Wrangler add-on being activated. Make sure it's active. So I'm gonna connect alpha socket with a factor, and then I'm gonna bring in a new Principled BSDF shader like this, and I'm gonna connect it to the socket, to the last one right here. So that's what we have so far. Let's try to actually adjust a few things. So first of all, we have to switch to extend. That looks better, and I'm gonna get back to UV editor again, hit tab, front view, gonna select those vertices, U, project from view. Let me try again. I'm gonna wrap everything. L to select all islands, and I'm gonna move it somewhere here. And again, I select all vertices. Right here, U, project from view. And I'm gonna adjust this. I'm gonna increase it like that. Probably a bit bigger. G, Y to move it higher. Let me see. GX to move it along the X. Let's actually move our reference image slightly like this. So yeah, let's make it slightly bigger, S to scale it. GY. And yeah, and let's move it to the left a bit. So yeah, I guess something like that would work. Also, we can tweak the texture of this label actually. Right here we can give it a color. For example, something like this. I'm gonna increase saturation and decrease roughness. Maybe that's too much. I'm gonna decrease saturation, so something like that. Let's leave it like this for now. And let's give some material for the actual hair as well. So I'm gonna switch to front view, hit new right here, and as you can see there is some sort of gradient on the hair. So let me try to recreate it with a color ramp. So I'm gonna bring in color ramp right here, and I'm gonna connect it to base color here, and then so now I select this mode, color ramp, and hit Ctrl T to bring in texture coordinate node and mapping node. I'm gonna delete image texture and connect these two sockets, and then I switch from UV to generated right here, and let me see what I have. I'm gonna bring those sliders a bit closer, something like that, and then I'm hit plus icon right here to bring in one more slider. So after that I choose my first slider, black one, and I choose eyedropper tool, and I'm gonna pick up color from here, and let me just duplicate this value and paste it for the right slider right here, and then I choose middle one, eyedropper, and I'm gonna pick up this one. So now I have to adjust the position of that. So let me see, I'm gonna rotate it along the Z, I guess. Yeah, something like that. And I'm going to move it a bit lower like this. Let me switch to front view. Let's actually put those sliders a bit closer to each other. Like this. Then I'm going to rotate it more. So yeah, something like that. Let's actually bring in one more slider. So I hit plus icon. I'm gonna copy this value and paste it for that slider as well. Probably I have to bring in more saturation. I'm gonna copy it and paste for this one. And same for the middle ones. So let's leave it like this for now. We can adjust it later if needed. If you want to make the transition between different parts a bit smoother, just move sliders away from each other, like this. And the gradation will be much smoother. Also, you can switch from linear to ease, like this. Let's check it. From this view, well, I think it's close to our reference image. Let's increase brightness of that light source so we can see better what's going on here. Yeah, I think that looks fine. So I noticed that I have to adjust my model slightly, so I choose the cylinder, hit tab, and I'm gonna select these two loops, so Alt and left click, and Shift Alt and choose another one, and GZ to move it lower, like this. And then I'm gonna select this one, S to scale it, and I'm gonna make it a bit rounder, probably like that. And also maybe I'm gonna select this one and scale it a bit as well, like that. So yeah, let's leave it like this. Now we can create a simple lighting setup for this product. So let me hide this reference image for now, and I'm gonna collapse this window on the left. Shift A to bring in plane, tab to enter the edit mode, S to scale it, like this. Then I switch to side view, wireframe mode, and I'm gonna select these vertices on the right, and then EZ to extrude them up. So we have two planes. Then I'm going to select this vertex as well, Control B to activate bevel tool, and I'm going to add more segments here, like this, and I'm going to bring in a few loop cuts here and here, and for that part as well. Tab to get back to object mode, Control 3 to bring in subdivision surface modifier. So that's how it looks like. Right click and shade smooth. Let me check face orientation, it's fine. Maybe let's give this surface some material. Let me see. I'm gonna switch to shader editor and hit new. Probably I want to use some dark color for the background and the actual shooting surface, so I'm just gonna grab probably something like this. Let's see. Let's leave it like this for now. I'm gonna choose camera, hit O to enter the camera mode, and to bring in this menu on the right, choose camera to view, and I'm gonna position somewhere here probably. My focal length is 150. That's okay. I'm gonna switch to 3D viewport and adjust camera position a bit. So GY to move it away from the objects. Something like that probably. And also I wanna adjust the position of this cap, so I'm gonna rotate it along Y. I'm gonna set origin to geometry and then RY 90 and then RZ to rotate it along the Z axis, and I'm gonna position maybe let's try like that. G Shift Z to exclude the Z axis from move tool, and maybe I'm gonna put it somewhere here, for example. The idea is actually to create the gradient on this part of the cap. So let's try this position, and I'm gonna move my plane a bit higher, somewhere here. Let me check from side view. We can actually snap it to the face. So GZ, and I'm holding Control key. I'm gonna try to snap it right here. So probably like that. And I'm gonna move this guy a bit lower. Face GZ, and same for these two parts, GZ. I'm going to snap it to the surface. So now I'm going to add a few light sources to the scene, and for that I hit Shift A, light, and choose area light, GZ to move it up, RY 90, RZ to rotate it along the Z, and I'm going to put it somewhere here as Z to scale it along the Z axis, and I'm going to move it up like this. Let's switch to rendered mode so we'll better see what's going on. I'm gonna delete this default light source X and delete. So far that's what we have. Oops, let me zoom in a bit closer. So yeah, that's what we have. Let's increase brightness of that light source to like 100. As you can see, we actually see that our shooting surface is actually reflected on this object. So what we can do in this case? First of all, I'm gonna light this object on the left, so I can hide this plane for now. Actually, I'm gonna select these two objects and hit M and add it to new collection. Let's go just one, for example. And I'm gonna put this plane to another collection. Let's call it background, for example. Right click, and I'm gonna choose disable from view layer. Actually, I have to bring new layer right here, so right click, view layer, and disable from view layer. I'm gonna add the reference image to the background as well, temporarily, and probably this one as well. And let me see. GZ to move it lower. So yeah, I just want to have maybe this hard highlight on the left. And then I'm going to duplicate this light source, Shift D. And I'm going to put it somewhere here. Move it a bit higher, RZ, to rotate it along the Z axis. And then I'm going to bring in a plane here. I'm going to rotate it and then extrude it into the edit mode. EY, like this. A to select all vertices, and I'm going to make it bigger, like this, and SY to make it a bit smaller, RZ. And I'm gonna put it here, for example, like this. 7 to switch to top view. I'm gonna rotate it along Z. G, Shift Z to move it somewhere here. Let me see how it looks like. I'm gonna add a new material for this one. I'm gonna choose shader editor here, and I'm gonna delete principled BSDF shader, and I'm gonna add translucent BSDF connected to this socket. So now we have nice highlight on the right, as you can see. And let me see. Maybe I can scale this light source a bit. I'm gonna make it bigger, like this. And maybe I can increase the length of this diffusion panel. Actually, E to extrude. I'm gonna move it a bit further, like this. So that's what we have. Nice gradient coming along the surface. Maybe I want to increase the brightness of that light source as well. So let's put it like maybe 500, for example. Yeah, that looks cool. So now I want to bring some light to this part, to this hair. So I hit Shift A and add spotlight, GZ to move it up, like this. And let me see, I'm gonna increase power, like 200. Maybe I'm gonna move it a bit lower, like that, and decrease the size. I'm gonna increase blend parameter. And maybe I'm going to decrease radius, like this. So let me see. Let's turn off this light source for a while, so we'll better see what's going on. I don't see if this light affects our scene in any way, so maybe I have to increase power. Not sure why it's not really visible. Maybe I'm gonna move it lower. Not sure why it's not working, but anyway, let's just add area light, for example, move it a bit higher, GY, and I'm gonna rotate it along the X like this. I'm gonna increase power to like 100, and maybe I wanna make it the light coming from the side a bit. So I'm gonna move it to the right, RY to rotate it like that, and I'm gonna increase power as well. So maybe something like this, and also have some nice highlights on these parts. I think that looks cool. Let's adjust the position of that light source. Maybe something like that. I'm gonna turn on the rest light sources. So far that's what we have. Maybe I want to make this highlight on the left a bit bigger, so I select this light source, hit SY to scale it, and I'm gonna rotate it along the Z. And maybe I can bring it a bit closer to the object. Maybe that's too much. Something like this. And let's increase the size of that light source as well. SY, G, Shift Z, and I'm gonna move it maybe here like this. And I also create some sort of rim light for both sides. So for that, I hit Shift A, light, area light, rotate it along the X, G, Shift Z, and let me see, I'm gonna move it up a bit, rotate it like this, S, Z to increase it along the Z axis, 7 to switch to top view, G, Shift Z, and I'm gonna put it somewhere here, RZ to rotate it again, like this, and let me increase the brightness as well. Maybe that's too much, let's try 50, and let me duplicate it, light source, Shift D and G, Shift Z, and I'm gonna put it to the another side, RZ to rotate it along the Z axis like this. So yeah, that's what we have so far. Let's just try to do a test render for this product. I'm gonna just let me see, enter camera mode, and I'm gonna hit just F12. So I actually forgot to put this object, this diffusion panel, to another layer and cap as well, but it's not a big deal, just a test render. So I just want to see how light interacts with the product. I think that's pretty cool. Maybe I have to make this part somehow brighter and kind of bring more contrast to that part to make this pop. So let me hide the cap and this diffusion panel. So let me see, where is it? I'm not sure why this is still visible on the, let me see if I put it here. It shouldn't be visible actually. Let me try like this, and also I'm gonna put this plane to that collection for now. Probably I want to adjust the logo, so I'm gonna make it metallic, and let me see, I'm gonna decrease roughness even more. Actually, I think it will be better, it will be easier to achieve the desired look like this. Maybe I'm gonna increase Yeah, something like that, probably. Now it kind of stands out. So let me try to render this one more time. Actually, I have to put I have to bring back this plane to this collection, as I want to see, I just can make it invisible for the camera. So I'm going to Object Properties and then choose Visibility and turn off Camera, so it won't be visible for the camera, but it still exists in the scene, and it will affect our object. We can also try to colorize this highlight on the left. So I choose this light source and go to Properties, and I'm gonna pick up Eyedropper tool and click somewhere here. Then I'm gonna increase this parameter and decrease saturation, I guess. Something like that. Let me try a bit more. And we can do the same thing for this light source on the right. I'm gonna select this one. Actually, let me just copy this value. And I'm gonna paste it for that light source. So all we have to do now is just to render this on the, we have to render this actual layer, and probably I'm gonna increase samples to, like, I don't know, let's try 300, and I'm gonna turn on adaptive sampling. And also you can turn on, let me see, denoising data to get rid of noises during the post-production as well. By the way, there's one more important thing. I have to make sure that I have actually transparent background, so I go to Film and hit Transparent right here. So all I have to do now is just to save this image as PNG file. I choose 16-bit mode usually and 0 compression. Yeah, so just save it somewhere, and we're gonna use it later for compositing in Photoshop. So now let's create something similar for the cap. And I'm gonna create a new layer actually. Let's call it cap. So what I'm gonna add there, let me see, I'm gonna hide these lights, actually gonna select all of them. I'm gonna add them to new collection. And right click, visibility, I'm sorry, view layer, and disable from view layer. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with this. I'm just gonna actually put it to this collection, and same for this collection. Right click, view layer, disable from view layer, and let's actually add these two to that collection for now. So now we only have a cap. Shift A to bring in area light, RX to rotate it, RZ, and then I'm gonna move it somewhere here. Shift A to bring in plane. I'm gonna rotate it and extrude along Y like this. And I'm gonna make it bigger, of course. Let's make it slightly thinner like that, and I'm gonna put it somewhere here. So let's see how it looks like. Let's add more power to that light source, like 200 maybe, and I'm gonna give it new material. As I did it previously, gonna delete this one, Shift A, shader, translucent VSDF. I'm gonna connect it right here, get back to 3D viewport, and I'm gonna rotate this light source like this. I'm gonna put it lower, GY, GX. So the idea is actually to create the gradient on this surface. So let me try to rotate this diffusion panel. I'm gonna move it light source, maybe. Let me see. Let's try to rotate it a bit more. Like that. G, Shift Z to move the light source. So yeah, maybe something like this. Let's try to increase the power. Maybe like 500. And let's add one more light source, area light, GZ, to move it up. And I'm gonna position it somewhere. Let's increase the length of that light source, RZ, to rotate it. And maybe I'm gonna put it somewhere above the cap. Like this. As you can see, right here, it gives us nice highlight on the top. I'm gonna increase power as well, like 100, maybe that's too much, 50. And maybe we can add one more highlight for this part, so I'm just gonna duplicate this light source, Shift D, and RY. Oops. R double Y. Actually R double Z. Like this. And maybe I'm gonna put it a bit higher, like this. Maybe somewhere here. Let's adjust the position of that light source, G, Shift Z. I'm gonna move it a bit higher like this, and I'm gonna increase the size of that highlight. Like that. I'm gonna increase power a bit. Also, let's colorize those highlights as well. I'm gonna select this one, eyedropper tool, click somewhere here, and I'm gonna adjust V I'm gonna decrease saturation like that. I'm gonna copy this value and paste it for that light source. Maybe we can make it a bit brighter. Something like that, and same for this one. So yeah, I think that looks cool. And let's hide this object from camera as I did it before, and let's try to render this scene. By the way, don't forget to switch to view layer properties and click render single layer. So this way it will render only the current layer. Save this image as we did it previously, save as, and choose PNG 16-bit mode. And now we have to create kind of general lighting setup for all objects, and for that I'm gonna, let me find the actual brush. I think I can delete the reference image as I won't need it anymore. So that's how our scene looks like without all light sources we have in the scene. Let me switch back to actually view layer, and I'm gonna select all light sources. This one, that one, and I'm gonna add it to a new collection. So what we have here, let's add this one here. I'm gonna delete this collection, right click, view layer, and disable from view layer. And also I'm gonna put this light modifier here. So that's what we have, and I'm gonna put kind of just one light source, area light. I'm gonna rotate it like this. Let's try to add a spotlight source instead. So I'm gonna move it right above the product like this. GX. Gonna increase intensity, increase blend value to 1, and I'm gonna decrease the size, probably like that. Maybe I'm gonna put it a bit lower, GY, GX. Maybe I'm gonna increase size slightly like this and put it a bit backward like that. So let me see what we have. Yeah, I guess something like this, since I want to have a relatively dark background and kind of bright spot on the shooting surface. So I think something like this will work. Let's actually increase power to 10,000. Let me actually adjust the position of that spotlight. So I'm going to move it a bit back and to the right. I'm going to rotate it along the Z like this, and I'm going to increase the radius to make the shadows a bit softer. Probably something like that. And I'm going to increase intensity a bit more. And I'm going to put the background to the left a bit. Yeah, something like this. So let's try to render this setup. So I think this will work as the basic layer. I'm going to put the other two layers for the actual brush and for the cap. So let's save it as well as a PNG 16-bit mode. So now let's bring in all parts into Photoshop, and I'm gonna select this layer and put it right here, another one, and the cap. So we have all parts here. Let's slightly crop our image like this. And now I'm gonna add a mask for the brush, and I'm gonna choose, I hit B on the keyboard to choose the brush tool, and I'm gonna decrease hardness to 0 and maybe opacity to 10, and I'm just gonna paint over this part. I'm just wanna match it better with the shooting surface. It shouldn't be that bright at the bottom part, so I'm just actually revealing the layer underneath it, as you can see. I'm gonna increase the brush size a bit, like this. Okay, so here's the before and after, and same for the cap. For this part, I'm gonna add a white mask, B to activate the brush. I'm gonna increase opacity to like 30. I'm just gonna paint over this area. Let's also switch to 8-bit mode for now. So yep, here's without a mask and with it. It looks better now in my opinion. And let's adjust these highlights on the brush. So just activate Magic Wand tool, V on the keyboard, gonna decrease the tolerance to like 6 maybe, and I'm gonna select that part and that part as well. And let me see, maybe I'm just gonna create a new layer like this, and I'm gonna add a mask to it. Choose brush like this, and I'm gonna paint over that area. Actually, let me try again. And like that. You don't have to be really precise, as we're gonna decrease opacity, and double click here. I'm gonna this slider to the right, and Alt and click to separate them. Like this. It kind of brings more realism to this highlight, in my opinion. Let's hide this part a bit. I'm gonna choose black brush, decrease opacity to 10, and just paint over this area. Like that. And maybe I can do the same for this logo. So I'm just gonna switch back to this layer and select all those letters like this, and I'm gonna click here and choose gradient. Let's put 0 here, and I don't actually see it. Not sure why. Let me choose radial. Oh, I understand why I don't see it. I'm gonna move it up, and now it should be visible. Let's switch back to linear. Yep, like this. Let's increase scale to like maybe 40. I'm gonna put this gradient somewhere here. Hit OK, and I'm gonna decrease opacity. So something like that. And also maybe I want to make this highlight a bit brighter. So let's put this gradient lower. I'm gonna select gradient and brush and hit Ctrl G to add it into the group. So now we have all layers into single group. And now I'm bringing Curves adjustment layer. And I'm gonna adjust contrast a bit. Ctrl Alt G to snap it to the layer underneath it, so we will only affect this layer with the brush. Put it lower, Ctrl Alt G, like this. Maybe that's too much. Yeah, maybe something like that. Let's duplicate this Curves adjustment layer and put it higher. I'm gonna select this layer and cap layer, Ctrl G to put it into the group. So yeah, something like that. And let's actually adjust contrast for this layer. Ctrl Alt G to snap it to the cap layer and maybe increase contrast for that one as well, like this. And for that one. Also, we can adjust colors of the background. So I select this layer, hit this icon and choose, for example, color balance, and I'm going to shift toward bluish tones like this. So this way we affect only the background and the part of the foreground, but not the objects of the scene. So maybe something like that. It's up to you completely. And also we can add the gradient to that part, make it smaller like this. Maybe that's too small. Let's increase it like that. Hit OK and choose soft light and decrease the opacity also. You can adjust the position of this gradient, of course. So yeah, I guess that's it. Feel free to download these models on Gumroad. I put the link under the description, and you can download PSD file as well to practice. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next tutorial.